How the coroner's court experience changed my practice as a doctor. But when I came back in the next morning, I was told that he had a cardiac arrest and he didn't make it. I started imagining the worst things that could happen to my patients. It's probably the curse of modern medicine. Hello, it's Roberta. I'm a doctor working in emergency medicine. I recently posted a vlog about my experience in coroner's court, so feel free to check it out here. So it's been 4 months since I've been to coroner's court, and I noticed it's changed a few things in my practice. It's not something I openly talk about, but I thought I'll get comfy and share it with you guys on here. So what happened last year? I can't go too much into detail because of patient confidentiality, but basically I saw an elderly gentleman in his 80s with his son, and he was brought in by the ambulance. There was no specific symptoms, but he was found to have new atrial fibrillation on his ECG. So usually we just do all our investigations, and if the patient remains stable, we would do a risk stratification to see whether they're suitable for blood thinning medication, and then we'd send them home with some sort of follow-up with the medical team. I had discussed this with the medical registrar on call, so that would be the middle grade doctor, like a senior doctor on shift. Our plan was to wait for one blood test, but because it was the end of my shift, so I had to hand that over to my consultant to follow up, who then decided that the patient can be discharged home. And from what I can gather, all the nurses were happy for my patient to go home as well. But when I came back in the next morning, I was told that he had a cardiac arrest and he didn't make it. So the whole point of the coroner's court was to investigate the circumstances around his death and to see whether we as a healthcare system, as a team, to see whether we've done anything wrong. It was a positive outcome from the court point of view. The coroner thought it was due to natural causes and no one has done anything wrong. So in theory, I should also stop blaming myself for my patient not making it, but unfortunately that's not the case. I noticed that I've been overthinking more than before. I am naturally an overthinker, but this experience has sort of made me overthink even more than before. I started imagining the worst things that could happen to my patients to a point where it started becoming more and more irrational. I would start over-investigating my patients. Some may argue my patient wouldn't need bloods. This is talking about someone else now. Let's say a patient who had come in with a head injury and bloods weren't indicated, but I would still be very tempted to do bloods as well as a CT head. And then once the CT head is done, I would then worry about, did I miss a tumor, even though I know that if it's a big enough tumor, it would then be picked up by the CT scan. And for the patients who need blood tests or follow-up investigations with their GP, in the past I would just tell my patient to go to the GP and get that sorted themselves. But these days I would call the GP, I would write a letter to the GP, as well as tell the patient to approach the GP to get these follow-up tests done, because I'm just so scared that these things aren't done for my patients. But I would say in the recent weeks, I wouldn't go too overboard. I would now skip the phone call. I would definitely write a letter to the GP so it's in black and white that I have written some sort of communication to them, but I would still ask my patient to still call the GP to make an appointment just to make sure that whatever test is done. I feel like I'm slowly getting back on my feet with that, and I'm starting to gain more trust in my own experience and my judgment, so hopefully that will keep on improving. Since the court experience, I've also had a lot of anxiety about checking my emails. Throughout the whole preparation period leading up to the court day, I had a lot of back and forth emails with the legal department, to a point where I got quite anxious about checking my work email. Checking my personal email wasn't too bad, but checking my work email every day started becoming a nightmare. Since the court experience, I've actually had to do 2 more statements. I haven't had much clinical involvement with them, but because I was one of the doctors that saw them, and so I was asked to provide a statement. I haven't been summoned to court since, but fingers crossed, we'll see what happens. Another thing that has changed since my court experience is the way I document in my notes. I tend to overwrite these days to a point where I used to, let's say, use one piece of paper and that would be all my clerking. These days I wouldn't be afraid to write 2 pages or even more. Just whatever I need to get down, I will write it down. I also religiously write down the timestamps of everything. I'll write down when I first see the patient, when I've ordered a certain test, when I've seen those tests, when I've discussed the patient with somebody, and I write the name of that person down, and I will timestamp when I've treated my patient, and I write down who are the nurses I've spoken to, when the treatment has been completed, and when they left the department, etc., etc. I am probably being really extra with it, but The reason I do it is because these small details is what saved me in court. So I really see the importance of writing all these things down, even if it means that I'm probably overwriting. Another thing is I always write my name down now. I have a little stamp that's got my full name, my GMC number, and my job role on it. So this is literally stamped in every single page. I also put the patient stickies, which is their name, hospital number, NHS number, address, date of birth, everything. So my details and their details will go on every single page of the notes, because that's what makes it a valid legal document. It's funny because these things were taught to us in medical school as well as our foundation training, and I somewhat understood the importance of them, but I just wouldn't do it every single time. So when I'm busy or when I'm in a rush, I would sometimes skip out this patient sticky, or I will probably not write my GMC number down, for example. But I have stopped being lazy now. I religiously do it every single day, every single patient, every page of the notes. And one thing I've learned from this patient's case is that I now really advocate for what I believe is best for my patients. For this patient in particular, I had my doubts, but because he actually looked well, and also his observations, blood pressure, his heart rate, everything weren't too abnormal. Everything remained stable throughout his stay with us, but there was something that I felt uneasy about. So that's why I spoke to the medical doctor about him. But the medical doctor was quite chilled about it. He didn't think that he needed an inpatient review. He didn't think that he needed to see the patient, which is fair enough. I used to give specialty doctors that choice. Like, I'll discuss the case with them, and then for them to decide whether they need to review them or whether this is something that they can review them as an outpatient in clinic. Sorry, I accidentally kicked the camera. But in this case, this medical doctor didn't actually see my patient. It was more of a discussion between me and him. He was still summoned to court, and he still had to give a statement. That's not me saying that anything could have changed if he did see my patient face to face, but there is a chance that if he had seen the patient, he might have thought maybe this patient needed an admission. Then he wouldn't have gone home and had a cardiac arrest and come in. He might have still had a cardiac arrest, because that was the conclusion from the court anyway. But I'm just thinking the son might not have had to witness him collapsing in the home and be traumatized by the experience. I don't know. These are just what ifs. What if this could have happened, you know? But since then, I've been more assertive when it comes to me referring a patient to a specialty. If I'm unsure about the patient and like whether they need to be admitted or not, or whether they need an inpatient review or not, these days I just push for an inpatient review. It's probably not best practice, but I also see that as me knowing the limits of my knowledge and my experience and passing it on to someone who has the expertise in that certain area. And if I believe that is what's best for my patient to have a specialty review, then I would rather they get that rather than just a verbal discussion. And the last thing I've learned from this whole court experience and from this patient in particular is to learn to accept negative outcomes. You would have thought I've been a doctor of 10 years, I would be so used to life and death situations, but that's really not the case. I still feel very uncomfortable, very uneasy, and very upset whenever I see a patient not make it. And I guess this is probably the curse of modern medicine. There are a lot of things you can do to keep people well, to save people's lives and to extend their lives, but I think we're often under the illusion that there's so much we can do, therefore everyone should make it. But that's not the case. Sometimes we can do the most and do everything for our patients and they still don't make it. That is still a very hard pill to swallow, even till this day for me. I haven't fully come into terms with it, and it's a slow process, but hopefully I'll get there. But I think it is good that there is a lot we can do medically, but we need to understand that we're not God. We cannot defy death. But yeah, it's a slow learning process for me. If you stuck around to the end of this video, thank you for tuning in. If you've had any similar experiences, please feel free to share it with me in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear it. I'll be sharing about a new venture of mine in the next video, so I'll see you then.